Good afternoon. First, an announcement. I've been promoting the Eranos conference at Ascona, Switzerland for the last couple of months. It was scheduled for April 23rd to 26th of this year. It's now canceled due to the coronavirus, and it's rescheduled for 1 year from now, so about 1 year later. And so I hope everybody knows that. Nicholas, I hope you heard my announcement, because the Ascona conference has been, the Eranos conference has been canceled, sadly. So we'll have to wait another year for that. So meanwhile, today I'm going to read the fourth part of Dr. Jung's essay, The Magician, which appears in this book. Let's see, I need a better view of what I'm doing here. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to read the fourth part of the essay, The Magician, from the Red Book by C.G. Jung, Reader's Edition. I'm going to begin a page earlier at page 422, which is, I think it's worth repeating. I read it yesterday, but I want to put it at the beginning this time. So let's see how this goes. So Dr. Jung had said that he thought Satan would pass an unbiased judgment. And so here's the funny ending of reading 3 once again. Satan, me, unbiased? You can judge for yourself. If you consider this absoluteness in its completely lifeless equanimity, you can easily discover that the state in standstill produced by your presumptuousness closely resembles the absolute. But if I counsel you, I place myself completely on your side, since you too find this standstill unbearable. Now, what he's talking about is Dr. Jung has been talking about the conjunctio and various aspects, and the point being that if you bring the opposites together, then they merge and become lifeless, because psychic energy has to pass between the opposites. And so, and that's what happens in Buddhism. In Buddhism, one is seeking nirvana, which means that all psychic energy stops, and you end up in absoluteness, in nirvana, in Western terms, in the pleroma. And so Satan is just pointing out to Dr. Jung here that it brings everything to a standstill. So reading it once again, me, unbiased? You can judge for yourself. If you consider this absoluteness in its completely lifeless equanimity, you can easily discover that the state in standstill produced by your presumptuousness closely resembles the absolute. But if I counsel you, I place myself completely on your side, since you too find this standstill unbearable. What? You take my side? That's strange. Satan, that's not so strange. The absolute was always adverse to the living. I am still the real master of life. That is suspicious. Your reaction is far too personal. Satan, my reaction is far from personal. I am utterly restless, quickly hurrying life. I am never contented, never unperturbed. I pull everything down and hastily rebuild. I am ambition, greed for fame, lust for action. I am the fizz of new thoughts and actions. The absolute is boring and vegetative. All right, I believe you. So just what do you advise? Satan, the best advice I can give you is revoke your completely harmful innovation as soon as possible. What would be gained by that? We'd have to start from scratch and would infallibly reach the same conclusion a second time. What one has grasped once, one cannot intentionally not know again and undo. Your counsel is no counsel, Satan. But could you exist without divisiveness and disunity? You have to get worked up about something, represent a party, overcome opposites if you want to live. That does not help. We also see each other in the opposite. We have grown tired of this game, Satan, and so with life. It seems to me that it depends on what you call life. Your notion of life has to do with climbing up and tearing down, with assertion and doubt, with impatience dragging around, with hasty desire. You lack the absolute and its forbearing patience. Satan, quite right. My life bubbles and foams and stirs up turbulent waves. It consists of seizing and throwing away, ardent wishing and restlessness. That is life, isn't it? Aye, but the absolute also lives. Satan, that is no life. It is a standstill, or as good as a standstill, or rather it lives interminably, slowly, and wastes thousands of years, just like the miserable condition that you have created. You enlighten me. You are personal life, but the apparent standstill is the forbearing life of eternity, the life of divinity. This time you have counseled me well. I will let you go. Farewell. Okay, so that's what I had read at the end of last night's reading. And so today I'm beginning with this. Satan crawls deftly like a mole back into his hole again. The symbol of the Trinity and its entourage rise up in peace and equanimity to heaven. I thank you, serpent, for hauling up the right one for me. Everyone understands his words since they are personal. We can live again a long life. We can waste thousands of years. Where to begin, O gods? In suffering or in joy, or in the mixed feeling lying between? The beginning is always the smallest. It begins in nothing. If I begin there, I see the little drop of something that falls into the sea of nothingness. It is forever about, beginning again down where the nothingness widens itself to unrestricted freedom. Nothing has happened yet. The world has yet to begin. The sun is not yet born. The watery fermentation has not been separated. We have not yet climbed onto the shoulders of our fathers, since our fathers have not yet become. They have only just died and rest in the womb of our bloodthirsty Europe. We stand in the vastness wed to the serpent and consider which stone could be the foundation stone of the building, which we do not yet know. The most ancient, it is as suitable as a symbol. It is suitable as a symbol. We want something graspable. We are weary of the webs that the day weaves and the night unpicks. The devil is probably supposed to create it, that paltry partisan with sham understanding and greedy hands. He emerged from the lump of manure in which the gods had secured their eggs. I would like to kick the garbage away from me if the golden seed were not in the vile heart of the misshapen form. Arise then, son of darkness and stench. How firmly you cling to the rubble and the waste of the eternal cesspit. I do not fear you, though I hate you. I do not fear you, though I hate you, you brother of everything reprehensible in me. Today you will be forged with heavy hammers. To that the gold of the gods will spray out of your body. Your time is over, your years are numbered, and today your day of judgment has gone to smithereens. May your casting burst asunder with our hands to wish to take hold of your seed, the golden one, and free it from slithery mud. May you freeze, devil, since we will cold forge you. Steel is harder than ice. You shall fit it into our form, you thief of the divine marvel. You mother ape, you who stuff your body with the egg of the gods, and thereby make yourself weighty. Hence, we curse you, though not because of you, but for the sake of the golden seed. What serviceable forms from your body? What serviceable forms from your body, you thieving abyss? These appear as elemental spirits dressed in wrinkled garb, Khabiri, with delightful misshapen forms, young and yet old, dwarfish, shriveled, unspectacular, bearers of secret arts, possessors of ridiculous wisdom, first formations of the unformed gold, worms that crawl from the liberated egg of the gods, incipient ones, unborn, still invisible. Now, I'm in the middle of a paragraph, but I want to share with you an image that Dr. Jung painted of the Khabiri because it clarifies what he's talking about with the Khabiri. And it does not appear in the Red Book, but it does appear in this book over my right shoulder, The Art of C.G. Jung. And so I have now found it. Okay, so this is a painting that Dr. Jung did in 1917, and I thought it a good idea to have this up so that you can see. Here's Jung facing an obelisk, and the artfully tied knot is underneath the Khabiri. And what I will mention to you is that the artfully tied knot is the human brain. And so these are the Khabiri who are standing on the human brain. And I'll start that section again. So now that you see the Khabiri, it will make a little bit more sense. What serviceable forms rise from your body, you thieving abyss? These appear as elemental spirits dressed in wrinkled garb, Khabiri with delightful misshapen forms, young and yet old, dwarfish, shriveled, unspectacular bearers of secret arts, possessors of ridiculous wisdom, first formations of the unformed gold, worms that crawl from the liberated egg of the gods, incipient ones, unborn, still invisible. What should your appearance be to us? What new arts do you bear up from the inaccessible treasure chamber, the sun yoke from the egg of the gods? You still have roots in the soil like plants, and you are animal faces of the human body. You are foolishly sweet, uncanny, primordial, earthly. We cannot grasp your essence, you gnomes, you object souls. You have your origin in the lowest. Do you want to become giants, you tom thumbs? Do you belong to the followers of the Son of the Earth? Are you the earthly feet of the Godhead? What do you want? Speak. The Khabiri speak. We come to greet you as the master of the lower nature. I. Are you speaking to me? Am I your master? The Khabiri. You were not, but you are now. You were not, but you are now. I. So you declare, and so be it. Yet what should I do with your following? The Khabiri. We carry what is not to be carried from below to above. We are the juices that rise secretly, not by force, but sucked out of inertia and affixed to what is growing. You know the unknown ways and the inexplicable laws of living matter. We carry up what slumbers in the earthly, what is dead and yet enters into the living. We do this slowly and easily, what you do in vain in your human way. We complete what is impossible for you. I. What should I leave to you? Which troubles can I transfer to you? What should I do? What should I not do? And what do you do better? The Khabiri. You forget the lethargy of matter. You want to pull up with your own force what can only rise slowly, ingesting itself, affixed to itself from within. Spare yourself the trouble, or you will disturb our work. I. Should I trust you, you untrustworthy ones? You slaves and slave souls, get to work, let it be so. I. It seems to me that I gave you a long time. Neither did I descend to you, nor did I disturb your work. I lived in the light of day and did the work of the day. What did you do? The Khabiri. We hauled things up, we built, we placed stone upon stone. Now you stand on solid ground. I feel the ground more solid. I stretch upward. The Khabiri. We forged a flashing sword for you, with which you can cut the knot that entangles you. I take the sword firmly in my hand. I lift it for the blow. The Khabiri. We also place before you the devilish, skillfully twined knot, which locks and seals you. Strike, only sharpness will cut through it. Strike, only sharpness will cut through it. Let me see it, the great knot all wound round, truly a masterpiece of inscrutable nature, a wily natural tangle of roots grown through one another. Only Mother Nature, the blind weaver, could work such a tangle. A great snarled ball and 1,000 small knots, all artfully tied, intertwined, truly a human brain. Am I seeing straight? What did you do? You set my brain before me. Did you give me a sword so that its flashing sharpness slices through my brain? What were you thinking of? The Khabiri. The womb of nature wove the brain. The womb of the earth gave the iron. So the mother gave you both, entanglement and severing. Mysterious. Do you really want to make me the executioner of my own brain? The Khabiri. It befits you as master of the lower nature. Man is entangled in his brain, and the sword is also given to him to cut through the entanglement. What is the entanglement you speak of? The Khabiri. The entanglement is your madness. The sword is the overcoming of madness. You offsprings of the devil, who told you that I am mad. You earth spirits, you roots of clay and excrement, are you not yourselves the root fibers of my brain? You polyp snared rubbish, channels for juice knotted together, parasites upon parasites, all sucked up and deceived, secretly climbing up over one another by night. You deserve the flashing sharpness of my sword. You want to persuade me to cut through you. Are you contemplating self-destruction? How come nature gives birth to creatures that she herself wants to destroy? The Khabiri. Do not hesitate. We need destruction, since we ourselves are the entanglement. He who wishes to conquer new land brings down the bridges behind him. Let us not exist anymore. We are the 1,000 canals in which everything also flows back again into its origin. Should I sever my own roots, kill my own people whose king I am? Should I make my own tree wither? You really are the sons of the devil. The Khabiri. Strike, we are servants who want to die for their master. What will happen if I strike? The Khabiri. Then you will no longer be your brain, but will exist beyond your madness. Do you not see your madness is your brain, the terrible entanglement and intertwining in the connection of the roots in the nets of the canals, the confusion of fibers? Being, being engrossed in the brain makes you wild. Strike. He who finds the way rises up over his brain. You are a Tom Thumb in the brain. Beyond the brain, you gain the form of a giant. We are surely sons of the devil, but did you not forge us out of the hot and the dark? So we have something of its nature and of yours. The devil says that everything that exists is also worthy, since it perishes. As sons of the devil, we want destruction, but as your creatures, we want our own destruction. We want to rise up in you through death. We are roots that suck up from all sides. Now you have everything that you need, therefore chop us up, tear us out. I. Will I miss you as servants? As the master, I need servants. The Khabiri. The master serves himself. I. You ambiguous sons of the devil, these words are your undoing. May my sword strike you, this blow shall be valid forever. The Khabiri. Woe, woe, what we feared, what we desired has come to pass. I set foot on a new land. Let me clear the image now. Now, there's another image that's mentioned here, but I don't think I have it here. Let me just check. Oh, no, it is there. Okay, so this is the last image in the Red Book, and I'll let it speak for itself. This is the image that is presented at this point. As I pointed out, the Khabiri did not, the image with the Khabiri did not appear in the Red Book, but this one does. I set foot on new land. Nothing brought up should flow back. No one shall tear down what I have built. My tower is of iron and has no seams. The devil is forged into the foundations. The Khabiri built it, and the master builders were sacrificed with the sword on the battlements of the tower. Just as a tower surmounts the summit of a mountain on which it stands, so I stand above my brain from which I grew. I have become hard and cannot be undone. Again, no more do I flow back. I am the master of my own self. I admire my mastery. I am strong and beautiful and rich. The vast lands and the blue sky have laid themselves before me and bowed to my mastery. I wait upon no one, and no one waits upon me. I serve myself, and I myself serve. Therefore, I have what I need. My tower grew for several thousand years, imperishable. It does not sink back, but it can be built over and will be built over. Few grasp my tower, since it stands on a high mountain, but many will see it and not grasp it. Therefore, my tower will remain unused. No one scales its smooth walls. No one lands on its pointed roof. Only he who finds the entrance hidden in the mountain and rises up through the labyrinths of the innards can reach the tower, and the happiness of he who surveys things from there and he who lives from himself. This has been attained and created. It has not arisen from a patchwork of human thoughts, but has been forged from the glowing heat and the innards. The Khabiri themselves carried the matter to the mountain and consecrated the building with their own blood as the sole keepers of the mystery of its genesis. I built it out of the lower and upper, beyond and not from the surface of the world. Therefore it is new and strange, and the towers over the plains inhabited by humans. This is the solid and the beginning. I have united with the serpent of the beyond. Let me come back to you for a moment. I have united with the serpent of the beyond. I have accepted everything beyond into myself. From this I have built my beginning. When this work was completed, I was pleased, and I felt curious to know what might still lie in my beyond. So I approached my serpent and asked her amiably whether she would not like to creep over to bring my news of what was happening in the beyond, to bring me news of what was happening in the beyond. But the serpent was weary and said that she had no liking for this. I don't want to force anything, but perhaps, who knows, we will still find out something useful. For a while the serpent hesitated, then she disappeared into the depths. Soon I heard her voice. I believe that I have reached hell. There is a hanged man here. A plain, ugly man with a contorted face stands before me. He has protruding ears and a hunchback. He said, I am a poisoner who was condemned to the rope. I, what did you do? He, I poisoned my parents and my wife. I, why did you do that? He, to honor God. I, what? To honor God? What do you mean by that? He, first of all, everything that happens is for the honor of God. And secondly, I had my own ideas. I, what went through your mind? He, I loved them and wanted to transport them more quickly from a wretched life into eternal blessedness. I gave them too strong a nightcap. I, and did this not lead you to find out what your own interest in this was? He, I was now alone and very unhappy. I wanted to live for the sake of my two children, for whom I foresaw a better future. I was in better health than my wife, so I wanted to live. I, did your wife agree to the murders? He, no, she certainly would have. He, no, she certainly would have consented, but she knew nothing of my intentions. Unfortunately, the murder was discovered and I was condemned to death. I, have you found your relatives again in the beyond? He, that's a strange and unlikely story. I suspect that I'm in hell. Sometimes it seems as if my wife were here too, and sometimes I'm not sure, just as little as I'm sure of my own self. I, what is it like? Tell me. He, from time to time, she seems to speak to me and I reply, but we haven't spoken about either the murder or our children until now. We only speak together here and there, and only about trivial things, small matters from our earlier daily life, but completely impersonal, as if we no longer had anything to do with each other. But the true nature of things eludes me. I see even less of my parents. I believe that I have yet to meet my mother. My father was here once and said something about his tobacco pipe, which he had lost somewhere. But how do you pass your time? He, I believe that there is no time with us, so there is none to spend, and nothing at all happens. Isn't that extremely boring? He, boring? I've never thought about it like that. Boring? Perhaps, but there's nothing interesting. In actual fact, it's pretty much all the same. Doesn't the devil ever torment you? He, the devil? I've seen nothing of him. You come from the beyond, and yet you have nothing to report? I find that hard to believe. He. When I still had a body, I often thought that surely it would be interesting to speak to one of the dead, but now the prospect means nothing much to me. As I said, everything here is impersonal and purely matter of fact. As far as I know, that's what they say. That is bleak. I assume that you are in the deepest hell. I don't care. I guess I can go now, can't I? Farewell. Suddenly he vanished, but I turned to the serpent and said, what should this boring guest from the beyond mean? Serpent. I met him over there, stumbling around restlessly like so many others. I chose him as the next best. He strikes me as a good example. But is the beyond so colorless? Serpent. It seems so. There is nothing but motion. When I make my way over there, everything merely surges back and forth in a shadowy way. There is nothing personal whatsoever. What is it, What is it then with this damn personal quality? Satan recently made a strong impression on me as if he were the quintessence of the personal. Serpent. Of course he would, since he is the eternal adversary, and because you can never reconcile personal life with absolute life. Can't one unite these opposites? Serpent. They are not opposites, but simply differences. Just as little as you make the day the opposite of the year or the bushel the opposite of the cubit. That's enlightening, but something boring, but somewhat boring. That's enlightening, but somewhat boring. Serpent. As always, when one speaks of the beyond, it goes on withering away, particularly since we have balanced the opposites and married. I believe the dead will soon become extinct. Okay, so that's the end of reading number 4. I'll now go back and catch the footnotes. Let's see where we were here. Okay, I'll quickly look at your chats. Bernard says the gnomes beneath the earth. Nicholas John, the gremlins under the pillow. Why don't you think it appeared in the Red Book, Skip? And Penelope says hello, Skip. Nicholas, in answer to your question, I have no idea, but I do know that Dr. Shamdasani left about 50% of the available material out of the Red Book for the first publication. And in a way, that's what made the second book, The Art of C.G. Jung, more interesting, because it does contain a few images that might well have been included in the Red Book. Now, I understand that during this year, there's a plan to publish the Black Books, which were the source of the Red Book. And so maybe we'll learn something from that. The other plan is that they're going to publish the protocols, which are the straight dictations that Agnella Jaffe took when she did Memories, Dreams, Reflections. And again, it's my understanding that the Jung family censored out about 50% of Memories, Dreams, Reflections when it was first published. And so they've sat there for like 60 years. And so now we're going to have the protocols of Agnella Jaffe, and we'll know more. I don't know what we'll know, but something. Yeah, the Black Book should be very interesting. Let me go to the footnotes now. So the text reads, on page 424. It is forever about beginning again, down where the nothingness widens itself to unrestricted freedoms. And the footnote reads, this line links with the beginning of Sermon 1 of Scrutinies, which is the 7 Sermons of the Dead, which begin on page 508. And then the text reads, nothing has happened yet. The world has yet to begin. The sun is not yet born. The watery firmament has not been separated. And the footnote reads, a reference to the account of creation in the book of Genesis. And then on page 425, there's a footnote about the Khabiri, and the text reads, are you the earthly feet of the Godhead? What do you want? Speak. And the footnote reads, the Khabiri were the deities celebrated at the mysteries of Samothrace. They were held to be promoters of fertility and protectors of sailors. Friedrich Kreuzer and Schelling held them to be the primal deities of Greek mythology, from which all others developed. The Deities of Samothrace was published in 1815, introduced and translated by R.F. Brown. Jung had copies of both of these works. They appear in Goethe's Faust, Part 2, Act 2. Jung discussed the Khabiri in Transformation and Symbols of the Libido, paragraphs 209 to 211. In 1940, Jung wrote, quote, the Khabiri are in fact the mysterious creative powers, the gnomes who work under the earth, i.e. below the threshold of consciousness, in order to supply us with lucky ideas. As imps and hobgoblins, however, they also lay all sorts of nasty tricks, keeping back names and dates that were on the tip of the tongue, making us say the wrong thing, etc. They give an eye to everything that has not already been anticipated by consciousness and the functions at its disposal. Deeper insight will show that the primitive and archaic qualities of the inferior function conceal all sorts of significant relationships and symbolic meanings, and instead of laughing off the Khabiri as ridiculous Tom Thumbs, he may begin to suspect that they are a treasure house of hidden wisdom. And then there's a parenthetical expression, attempt at the psychological interpretation of the dogma of the Trinity, Collected Works 11, paragraph 244, which is Collected Works 11 is Psychology and Religion. Jung commented on the Khabiri scene in Faust in Psychology and Alchemy, Collected Works 12, paragraph 203 and following. The dialogue with the Khabiri that takes place here is not found in Black Book 4, but is in the handwritten draft. It may have been written separately. If so, it would have been written prior to the summer of 1915. Then on page 426, before the beginning of, let's see. Okay, before this sentence, it seems to me that I gave you a long time. And the footnote reads, Jung's marginal note to the calligraphic volume, quote, thereupon I laid this matter aside for 3 weeks, unquote. And on page 427, there are these questions. Did you give me a sword so that its flashing sharpness slices through my brain? What were you thinking of? And the footnote reads, in Transformation Symbolism of the Mass, Jung noted that the motif of the sword played an important role in alchemy and discussed its significance as an instrument of sacrifice, its divisive and separative functions. He noted that the alchemical sword brings about the solutio or separatio elementorum, thereby restoring the original condition of chaos so that a new and more perfect body can be produced by a new impressio formae or imaginatio. That's from Collected Works 11, paragraph 357 and following. And then there's another sentence. This is the Khabiri speaking. The entanglement of your madness, the sword is the overcoming of madness. And the footnote reads, the notion here of overcoming madness is close to Schelling's distinction between a person who is overcome by madness and the person who managed to govern madness. Okay, and then on page 429, he says, I wait upon no one, and no one waits upon me. I serve myself, and I myself serve. Therefore, I have what I need. And the footnote reads, Jung's marginal note in the calligraphic volume, accept what is present in the last pages of the Manghetti collection. It seems that this refers to the Bibliotheca Chemica Curiosa, a collection of alchemical texts. Jung possessed a copy of this work, which has some slips of paper in it and some underlinings. Jung's note possibly refers to the last woodcut of the Mutus Liber, which concludes volume 1 of the Bibliotheca Chemica Curiosa, a representation of the completion of the alchemical opus, with a man being lifted upward by angels while another lies prostrate. And then at the end of this page, this is a solid and the beginning. And the footnote reads, in Psychological Types, Jung commented on the symbolism of the tower in his discussion of the vision of the tower in The Shepherd of Hermas. And that's Collected Work 6, paragraph 390. In 1920, Jung began planning his tower at Bollingen. Now, one thing I would point out to you is there is a novel called The Shepherd of Hermas, which was written, I think, in the 3rd century. It is available on Amazon, and it is available on audible.com. So I urge you to take a look at it. The next footnote reads February 2nd, 1914. So we're now about 7 weeks into the active imagination cycle that Dr. Jung is going through. It began on December 12th, 1913, and we're up to February 2nd, 1914. And so we're still 6 months before the beginning of World War I. And one other footnote. Suddenly he vanished, but I turned to the serpent and said, what should this boring guess from the beyond mean? And the footnote reads, Black Book 4 has soul as opposed to serpent. So he's regarding the serpent as his soul, just for the record. Now, I had a couple of other comments here. Okay, one of them is the Khabiri said to him, do not hesitate. We need destruction since we ourselves are the entanglement. He who wishes to conquer new land brings down the bridges behind him. And I just remind you that in Hunt for Red October, the Russian captain is speaking to Ryan, and he said when Cortez reached the New World, he burned his ships because then he knew that his men would be well motivated to succeed in the New World. That was his plan. And so that this is probably a reference to that. Okay, I'm not going to get it more complicated than that for you. So that is part 4 of the Magician essay. We still have about 25 pages to go. And so the next section, which I'll try to read tomorrow, begins with this sentence: "The devil is the sum of the darkness of human nature," quote unquote. So that will be from section 5. So Grenade says, "Deep wisdom about the nature of reality is indistinguishable from foolish nonsense." Yes, that's the irony of it. It's why the gnomes are both wise and pranksters. And Robert Derry says, "Reading Jung is both frightening and healing." Yes, it is, because it makes you rethink the positions that you've had. And this is what the Khabiri's role is. They want to be destroyed so that they can, something new can be developed. And so whenever there's total destruction, then something new will emerge. And so this reminds me of the travel industry right now, which is being totally destroyed by the coronavirus, but some new attitudes about being together in groups and traveling far away are going to emerge from this crisis that's coming on us around the world. And I wanted to mention once again that the Aranos conference that was scheduled for the end of April, which I've been promoting quite heavily, has been canceled for this year. And it will be conducted about 1 year later in the third week of, or I guess the fourth week of April, 2021. And I do have the dates of it. I don't have them handy right now, but if you're interested in that, please let me know. And so I'll just leave it at that. This has been the reading of part 4 of The Magician from the Red Book by C.G. Jung, Reader's Edition. And so it's quite obvious from this, or it should be quite obvious, that it's entirely impossible to grok these works unless you sit with the words word for word. I mean, my reading of it can only pique your interest, but if you want to understand what's being said by Dr. Jung, you really do have to go out and get the book yourself. And while that book is $150 or so on Amazon, the Reader's Edition is only about $25. So I urge you to go buy one of them. Actually, I had to buy both of them because once my wife gave me the folio edition, I realized that I could not read it because this is the way I read. And so I just couldn't bring myself to mark up the folio edition. It's such a beautiful book. And that's why I got the Reader's Edition, so that I could mark it up. And because that's how I read, not the referential way. So anyway, that's why this book is in good shape, because I've had it for 10 years, but I've treated it like one would treat a illuminated medieval Bible kind of thing. Anyway, so that's all I have to say for tonight. I'll see you tomorrow, perhaps. Thank you for joining me today.